news,
Read all about it.
in-depth analysis of national current affairs.
Hasta la vista.
Thank you very
Freshly
much.
pressed on Smooth 98.1.
So my bad.
And we're in again for Freshly Pressed. It's Thursday, the 30th of June, 2022, the last day in the month, and the last day of the first half of the year. And we're excited and grateful for life. My name is Victor Peppo, and we're bringing you big stories from our national dailies today. I'm not alone in the studio. For a Thursday, we have Fidel. Is it Tene? Good morning.
Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Lagos.
Good to see you on a Thursday.
Good to see you too.
Ugo Dre.
Hey, good morning, good morning.
Good morning and welcome.
How are you?
All
Mr.
right.
Victor?
I'm very well. Good to see you too. Doing great stuff, Ugo.
We're fine.
All right. You listening can be part of the show, sending in messages on WhatsApp. Feel free to react to the stories and, comment as well. Send your messages in the WhatsApp portal 0809 4440981. Also, tweet us, smooth981FM, hashtag freshly pressed, so we can see it. All right. So we can take your comments on Twitter. We're streaming live at the moment on YouTube. It's Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Let's get straight into our stories. Our first story for today coming in from the Punch newspaper: grid collapse, terrorist sabotaging rehabilitation efforts, says federal government. The federal government said efforts to ensure steady power supply nationwide is being frustrated by terrorists who are vandalizing critical power sector, power infrastructure in hard-to-reach areas, especially the northeast. In fact, the Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, was speaking to State House correspondents after, the Federal Executive Council meeting that held yesterday in Abuja. Fidel, let's come to you for this one. What do you make of this story?
It's fascinating if you check what the Minister of Power is saying, vis-a-vis what our security operatives say, vis-a-vis what the President of the Federal Republic says. So there's a lot of discrepancy. So the Minister of Power, the minister, that's Abubakar Aliyu, is saying that during this federal executive meeting, that the reason why we're having these grid collapses, it's inevitable. Everybody in Nigeria has been facing it, right? The power supply has been down. Now, for a fact, we know that today the government controls just, let's say, one part of the value chain, right? Okay, so there's generation, transmission, and then there's distribution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the federal government is still in charge of the transmission. So we have the private sector being involved in generation and distribution. So the explanation, the only job we've given the federal government to handle, they're not giving an explanation as to why we are not, or why the electricity is not being transmitted properly to the discos. And the reason being that there are terrorist strongholds that officials of the TCN cannot reach. And so
just a moment, Fidel. I'm trying to make sense of this. The reason why we had grid collapse 5 times in 6 months this year is because of terrorist
strongholds that operatives of the TCN cannot reach, because the terrorists are sabotaging their equipment, because when the equipment goes bad and they're supposed to go for like maintenance or whatnot, they cannot reach. And I'm surprised, because I'm saying we have terrorist strongholds in Nigeria that security operatives cannot reach. Let's leave the TCN now. These are civilians. But you're telling me that areas in Niger State, Borno State, okay, let us assume without conceding Borno State, but in Niger State, so like I said, it's confusing with what the federal government has been saying, what the Nigerian army has been saying, So the question is this now: this is a Federal Executive Council meeting, right? The Vice President is there. What does the Nigerian army have to say about this? And I'm wondering why we only have these equipments to carry the Federal Republic of Nigeria only in northern Nigeria. If we have these equipments in Borno, Niger State, and I think he mentioned one other part of the country in the northeast, like Katsina, right? Why do we not have these equipments that can carry the country in the south?
So when he talks about the Northeast and then mentions Niger State, I'm a little confused, right? Because Niger State happens to be in the North Central.
North Central, yeah.
Yes, and Shiroro. Yes, I know there's a power infrastructure there. Also, Kainji Dam is
Yeah,
in Niger State.
yeah.
And he talks about the Northeast and terrorism in the Northeast affecting power grid and how it's collapsing 5 times in the first 6 months of this year.
I mean, look, that's the strongholds, right? He's claimed that it starts from the northeast. I mean, and we know that. I mean, this whole thing about terrorism, and I say the same: banditry, terrorism, whatever name you want to call it, kidnappers or whatever name you want to call it. In that area, it's stretched from the northeast down to central, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, these equipments belonging to the TCN are in all these areas. So whether it's in the northeast, whether it's in the northwest, whether it's north central, Mr. Minister is saying that there are terrorists there operating around the infrastructure that belongs to the federal government, and the federal government officials or staff of the TCN cannot access these places.
Just one more question before I move over to Ugo. This administration of President Buhari has spent over 1.6 trillion naira trying to fix our power sector since it came in. Until now, a lot of Nigerians are not satisfied with the output, the power supply that we get. Yes, tariffs have been increased and continually gets increased, yet we're not getting commiserate, value for what we pay. I mean, we're not getting the power supply. You still have to depend on diesel and petrol to run your businesses. Just yesterday, we're hearing of an approval of about $22.6 million to also help improve, the power supply. I mean, the power sector, to help with infrastructure in the power sector.
I mean, look, Victor, there are areas in this country that I cannot really understand. I cannot explain. Maybe our listeners can, chime in. I cannot understand what exactly is going wrong there. And we will see another area that is an enigma: the NNPC. The NNPC, crude oil, power generation. You see those parts of this country. There is a lot of mystery behind why these things happen. I mean, we've privatized, like I said in the beginning, we've privatized the distribution. To some extent, we've privatized the generation of electricity in this country. Some areas of Nigeria have like sort of like a I don't know the right technical term, but like a captive electricity whereby they generate their electricity. But I think we have that in like Boni Islands and all and whatnot. So you have less amount of people you have to cater for. However, I mean, even at that, I believe that there still has to be electricity. The electricity has to come from the transmission board or whatnot, like I said. But the point is, the Nigerian government has less and less responsibilities when it comes to electricity generation. How are we still failing at this?
Send in messages to us on WhatsApp 0809 4440981. From the Punch newspaper, we move over to This Day, where still from the FEC meeting, the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday, FEC OK's initiative to raise annual revenue by 3.96 trillion naira. Ugo, we come to you for this now. Just yesterday, the Federal Executive Council approved a new revenue base that will see the country generate 3.8 trillion naira from non-oil and 160 billion naira from oil sectors annually.
All right, Victor. So this is in continuation of the government. What government always has all these acronyms. SRGI. I don't know if you've heard of it before. So that basically means Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative. I think it was announced last year by the Minister of Finance. And the idea was to basically increase government's revenue from about 12 trillion or thereabouts to about 18 trillion, or 15% of GDP, as they put it at the time. So since then, we haven't really had much, and now they've come, FEC has met, and they've okayed initiatives to increase the revenue or to generate 3.8 trillion. But guess what? They didn't actually state how. It wasn't really clear what they were going to do. How are you going to generate, 3.8 trillion? Is it by, exporting more oil or increasing oil production? We're currently below target or below budget. Is it by selling government assets? If that's it, then that's just a one-off deal. Is it by increasing taxes? That is very likely what they're going to do. And they did mention that one of the initiatives was to increase VAT from 5 to 7.5%, which is what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So you're likely going to see a lot more tax increases across board. Now, one thing that they did mention subtly, even though they didn't provide detail, was to leverage on technology. And what that sounds like is you're probably going to see a lot more people pay tax simply by the government having access to their financial records through banks. So you're probably going to be getting phone calls from tax officials asking you to pay tax simply because they see transactions in your account and you haven't actually paid tax before. So you're going to see a lot more of things like that. You see a lot more aggressive taxation from the government. Then very likely that you're going to see a lot of licensing popping up left, right, center, Victor. So government is basically trying to raise revenue by all means. So they're probably going to be licensing all stuff. Who knows? Might even license the headphones that you wear. So you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff like that, and that's because this is all part of this initiative. But like I said, they did not provide details. I've tried to search for details even since last year. They haven't really provided details.
So you are right when you say that we might see an increase in taxes. In fact, I hear cigarettes now will be paying smokers. Smokers of cigarettes will be paying as much as 30% for what they consume. And the question now will be: in 2019, we saw an increase from 5% to 7.5%. Howbeit, I mean, 3 years later, it's not confirmed, right? We might likely see an increase again. Shouldn't we look to widen the tax nets, tax brackets, where, for instance, some of these companies, instead of remitting, they use their taxes for CSR? Why don't we take the money from them and go on to build those roads that they claim they're building, leading to their companies?
Please, I think it's okay for them to use their money to build those roads and then claim
Every
it back
year?
from taxes. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's either you have the private sector. Guess what, Vector? I wouldn't mind if I get a tax back for providing security for myself because that's what we all do, isn't it?
Mm.
We all provide our own security. We all provide. If you build a house now and maybe somewhere in Lekki or Abule Egba or something, you're probably going to pave your own road yourself, right? Because the local government is not going to do it for you. So how do you get that tax back? Right? So you should actually get the tax back because that is the job of the government, but you're doing it. So for companies or large corporates that build, big roads or huge roads or long, roads that span kilometers, I think it is okay for them to do it and have that as some kind of tax credit. And that tax credit doesn't necessarily mean that government is there's money leaving governments, cash leaving government. It's just a tax, credit. So to me, I think
So really, when we give tax exemptions to big companies that are supposed to remit taxes in millions and billions, and then we tax small businesses, the arguments persist.
no, 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 no. So I think you were correct when you said you need to broaden the tax neck, and
Right.
that's what people have always said. And the reason why they say that is government will typically continue. You need to know how tax authorities work. They will keep taxing the people that they've always taxed. So if you're a company, whether a big corporate or a small corporate, they have you and you've been paying. Once you enter that tax record like this and you start paying one tax, that's the end for you. They would hound you. But the next guy who is your next door neighbor who doesn't even pay at all, they don't know him. And to be fair, maybe not their fault because it takes a lot of resources to drag people into that net. So if you can't drag them into net, what you ask yourself is, okay, what do I do? Do I spend money looking for people that I still have to bring on and start to convince to pay, or do I just go after the guy who has actually been paying me before? So that's what's going on here. So I think a lot of these corporates pay their taxes, small businesses pay taxes, but they need to get more people to pay from the informal market.
Okay, quickly, let's take some of your reactions on WhatsApp. These in from Ali. So, in one word now, they're saying this steady power supply, the promised will start in July, is not going to happen, or what? Let's keep our fingers crossed. Never say never. It's either the minister doesn't know what he's saying or he's actually saying the truth, that the terrorists are the ones under control and are affecting the power sector. Bottom line, anyhowness in display. That's in from JJ. Lekon comes in with this. The Minister of Power is just looking for flimsy excuses to cover their inability to meet up with their earlier promised 2 weeks, the promise they made 2 weeks ago when he assured us that power generation and distribution will improve by July 1st, being tomorrow. Now he can't meet up now he can't meet up, so the excuses. Just rephrasing. And Nigerian government are naming SRGI. They have more names than the IUPAC, International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, naming programs with God knows what intentions, but no action to actualize them. Tajuddin from Alimosho is the one in with that message. However, Chika from Echo Bridge says, with due respect to the Minister of Power, that activities of terrorists is the major reason why we've had poor power supply and constant collapse of national greed. To me, is quite laughable. Countries like Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq still have light, even though they are at war. Why is Nigeria different? We're not at war. But I get your point. Cisco Delgado says, we provide virtually everything with regards to basic amenities. There's nothing like steady electricity supply to Nigerians. And earlier I was asking if it's raining in your neck of the woods, and he says it's raining chicken and turkey in my area, Ketu. I see. Thank you very much. Talking taxes, PJ says the tax issue is a two-edged sword, because the minute you start paying taxes, you also are forced to demand accountability for what you are paying. Maybe that is what we actually need in this nation, because the UK and other parts of the world that we convert, they pay these taxes and they also demand accountability. Okay. Idimapuza from Surulere says that when will the scam called fuel subsidy payment end in Nigeria? It is already killing Nigerians. In the midst of plenty crude oil, no refineries are working, no new ones are built. We depend on importation of fuel abroad. What a shame. Petroleum Minister must resign. Okay, I'm not sure that's happening. He was supposed to contest in the APC's primaries, but refused to resign. I said, I'd rather remain in this office as Minister of State for Petroleum. And that takes us to our next headline from the Guardian newspaper. Reps to investigate NNPC fuel subsidy claim from 2017 to 2021. I mean, the ad hoc committee, I mean, petroleum products, they're going to carry this out, and they're looking at this from 2017 to 2021, also looking at our refineries, the capacity about 445,000 barrels per day. And I'm not sure that any of the refineries.
445,000.
Okay, Fidel, just go ahead. Really,
445,000 per day to zero. I mean, that's what the rep Sergius Ogun from PDP, and he's representing Edo State. I'm not quite sure what part of Edo State he's representing, but this is it. The House of Rep member has just said what we all know, right? Again, there is a lot of mystery, and it's very, very negative mystery around the activities of the NNPC. I will say the then NNPC. I mean, we don't. They've been we have the new regulators now. But I mean, is it? Sometimes I wonder, right? We have new regulators here, but it's almost like it's the same old people, and in that case, it's like would I say just I mean saying this just a different day, because we're on morning radio. Anyway, point being that the NNPC has had a lot of secrecy with respect to subsidy. Now, to be honest, Victor, I would say that I'm one of those guys who believe that yes, subsidy should be taken out, but really gradually, because if you take it out immediately, there can be a lot of economic, would I say, backlash, especially because the common man doesn't understand what is going on, right? I mean, in the economics of things, it makes a lot of sense, but the common man doesn't understand what's going on. However, the House of Rep member here has clearly stated why subsidy has to really be eradicated, because, I mean, when you look at the reporting, the NNPC the production first has nosedived. NNPC trades our crude by barter for crude oil produce, right? The raw crude is traded by barter for produce that the NNPC now sells. And the NNPC on the reports fuel that should be going for 162 to 165 naira to as 123 to 128 naira. So according to the rep the House of Rep member, we are looking at almost, I beg your pardon, I'm trying to pick out the number. Yeah, we're looking at almost a $7 billion in revenue underreported. Now, this is a PDP uh, House of Rep member, right? So the 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 other members or the minister or the state minister can want to say, oh, this is just a political allegation. But the truth of the matter is that it is actually something that must be investigated, and it is something that must be given answers. It should not just go, under the rug. And I worry when we use words like the NNPC, right? I believe we should demystify that acronym. We should bring out those who headed different areas or organs of this ministry, and then have these gentlemen or these ladies answer these questions, because there were people who were managing these places, right? NNPC was doing this, NNPC was doing that. There were people who were signing these orders, were giving these directives, that were aware of these monies. There were accountants, there were managers. So I believe that these people should be the ones that should be sitting in the room, and then gentlemen like Mr. Sergius Ogun should be asking them these questions. And whereby they cannot answer the question, they should face criminal prosecution.
All right, Fidel, you live in Nigeria, but let's see how it pans out. Coming to you, Ugo, quickly, still discussing the NNPC. There are claims that since 2017 till now, we're paying subsidy over, 4 trillion are expected to be spent for this year alone. But let's look at this article from this day newspaper. Fill queues. NNPC insists enough products available in stock. Queues will clear in days. We have refineries, about 4 in Nigeria, in Warri, Port Harcourt, and Kaduna, with a combined capacity of 445,000 barrels per day. Yes, we agree that they're not producing, they're not refining any crude at all, but the NNPC is also promising Nigerians that by 2024, the one in Port Harcourt will be working. And perhaps between the end of this year and next year, the Dangote refinery will be working. So we no longer have to export our crude, to refine and then bring it back into the country. Help us make sense when NNPC says the products are available, yet we still see queues across Nigeria, not just in Lagos. That in Lagos, I think, is beginning to fizzle gradually. What's your reaction to this particular headline from this day newspaper?
Okay, I didn't know we had 4 refineries, though, because for the last 10, 15 years, I don't think anyone has worked. So when you say we have 4 refineries,
So we do have.
Whoever counts cars that they don't even use, like cars that are parked in your car park, dead, no tires, and you say you have a car. I don't know, Mr. Victor. Anyway, so why do we have fuel queues? I think there are a lot of logistic challenges. It's one thing for you to have fuel in stock or in depots or right there on the high sea, waiting for it to be docked and put into depots and all that. And then it's another thing to distribute that fuel across the country, and that's really where the problem is. So transportation and moving products across the country has been difficult over the last few months. One, there's challenges with the pricing, the structure of the market. Inflation is high. A lot of these trucks are powered by diesel. Diesel prices are skyrocketing, so it's difficult for people who transport products to move products profitably. And of course, there's also insecurity across the country. So there's a challenge with that market. And if it's a market that continuously needs to wait for government to set its price or to determine how they recover their cost of investment, then you'd always have gridlock. It's not enough for you to have a billion or 10 billion products anywhere. If the structure or the that should move products across the country is broken, then you're always going to have queues pop up here and there. And I think there's going to be more of it in months to come. It's not going to disappear. You're going to have periods where free stations are just going to have fuel and you can drive in and buy, and then you're going to have periods where they just don't have and queues will appear. So I think we should all brace up for it. It's not a product issue. There's enough product. What we have is a structural issue that has to do with logistics, moving products across. And if you don't fix that, which is pricing, like I mentioned, then you have a problem. By the way, you did mention 4 trillion or so in subsidy. That 3 point something trillion that they are looking for to the market.
All right, quickly, in about 1 minute, Fidel, let's look at this from the Guardian newspaper. State healthcare budgets deep from 11 to 4.65%.
I mean, I get it. I get it, right? COVID is over. Um, Government is saying, okay, do we really need to pump in all this money into the health sector, right? I mean, I'm playing the devil's advocate now. Let's look at both sides. On the other hand, we have a doctor crisis, health crisis with healthcare personnel. Our doctors, our nurses are, constantly leaving this country to, look for not just opportunities, but in their same field, right? I mean, the UK put out a report to say that this amount of doctors have. I mean, I don't have those numbers, but the UK put out a report to say this amount of doctors have come from Nigeria in X amount of months, right? And then we have the states saying, okay, COVID is over, and then they're reducing how much they're spending on, primary health care. One thing we must understand is this: we are responsible for what happens to the average man, right? The government is responsible for what happens to the average man. Now, if we look at how much resources are being put in to healthcare, and then we look at how much output, because I mean, fine, states like Lagos State, I mean, okay, so let me just put some context to it. States like Lagos State have reduced how much they are spending on healthcare. However, states like I think the report says Bayelsa and Ogun State have upped how much they're spending on healthcare. Now, if we start to reduce these monies and then we have a personnel problem, bear in mind Nigeria always has a capacity problem, and an infrastructure problem, right? So the right equipment are not always there, and maybe the doctors have to improvise, right? The nurses, the doctors are having to improvise. So the question is, why are we reducing these monies? I don't know. I'm not the expert, but I don't know. But when we look at what is happening in our society generally, where we have a capacity problem, the personnel are leaving the country, I don't think this is the best move by the states.
All right, thank you, Fidel. Now, still from the Guardian newspaper, as part of control measures against public health, federal government is increasing tax on cigarettes, the price by 30%. Ugo.
Which kind of public health? This is just a revenue drive. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a revenue drive, and this is not the first time it's happened. I think it happened in 2018 or 19, if you all recall, when they increased taxes. I think they were charging £1 per stick or something in taxes then. So now they are saying they're increasing it by 30%. Indeed, the excise duty has gone from 20% to 30%. Add valorem, that's what they call it, which basically means taxes. It's going to go from 58 naira to 84 naira per 20 stick of cigarettes. So smokers, cigarettes is going to get more expensive. I don't think that deters people anyway. People have diversified the way they smoke these days, So, but it also affects shisha smokers, by the way. So people who love to smoke shisha in bars and clubs, they're going to be charging,
but
3,000
don't
naira per liter.
Don't we also have a problem at hand where there's a report here that about, let's just get to the age 50, people from age 15 and older are the ones who use some of these tobacco products.
Yes, so what's the problem with that?
Age 15, they're not 18 years old yet.
That's a different issue now. So that's basically a social ill issue, right? And probably has to do with upbringing and a lot of the issues that we have in Nigeria. But this is basically taxes. And while government, not just Nigerian government, governments across the world always, disguise public health as one of the issues or one of the reasons, taxing cigarette for the last 100 years or so has always been one way government likes to increase revenue. So that's what's happening. Cigarettes, by the way, are not the only things that are seeing increase in taxes. We're also seeing an increase in taxes for alcohol. We've even seen the one for sugar as well, which all of them are all health, public health, but we're all paying the taxes. Let's hope that they use these taxes judiciously.
Thank you very much. Fred from First Access. The mystery surrounding the power and oil sector in Nigeria is one that this administration promised to tackle, but it's now neck deep in the web. It's really pathetically unfortunate. Sheung says, I'm surprised that people are commenting that they are disappointed that power won't improve by 1st July. Where did they expect power to suddenly improve from? The country is not generating enough. If it ever manages to, it doesn't have a way to distribute it. No one here can seriously expect power to improve in minimum of 5 years.
Yeah, just to respond to that, we actually do generate enough electricity for the country. The problem is with the transmission to the distribution companies and then the revenue generation from the distribution companies.
I think the discussion should be around how to eradicate the corruption around subsidy. It's established that subsidy in itself is not a problem. Subsidy is paid all over the world on different areas of the economy. Bolaho sent that message in. And Uche from Isolo, we wrap up here, says, Bros, you see the rep members are proposing. It sounds to me like, guys, we know you are running Nigerian streets, so come and drop I with see. Okay, that's Robin who sent that one in. Thank you very much. We need to go. Thanks to Fidel and Ugo Dre. You can catch Fidel on social media at Izutene,
Yeah.
and at Ugo Dre. Also tag us in Smooth 981 FM. And I'm personally at Victor Pepple. Good morning.
The headlines, the stories,
All right,
the
guys.
views,
Thank you.
in-depth analysis of national current
We did
affairs.
6 stories.
Yeah.
I knew we weren't going
So
to.
I mean, your calculation was correct.
Let me off this. Thank you, guys. We need to go.